Good morning. If you would please turn your Bibles to Ecclesiastes chapter 5. Ecclesiastes 5 will be our text this morning. You don't need me to tell you that our world is full of fear and uncertainty. We were reminded of that just a few days ago with a terrorist attack in Paris. This is not the first of the terrorist attacks around the world. It wasn't the last. There's terrorist attacks regularly. Consequence or related to that is also wars that have plagued humanity throughout history. There's other things certainly beyond those acts of violence, things like droughts or storms or various other things that happen throughout our world that threaten us, that threaten our peace, that cause us anxiety, that get us all worked up and anxious, that if we're not careful, can cause us to live lives of fear. So how do we respond as Christians? We turn on the news, we see things going on all around us. How do we handle that? How do we, as people of God, live in such a way that we don't let all these fears and anxieties overwhelm us? How do we go to sleep each night knowing all the things that are going on around us and still be godly people? Well, a couple things I would offer for you this morning. First thing we should do is always pray. We need to always be willing and eager to take our fears to God. I think it's important for us to pray for those who suffer from terror around the world. I think it's important for us to pray for refugees who've been displaced from their homes. I think it's important for us to pray for the United States and for our homeland security. Anything that you turn over to God ceases to have a hold over you. So one of the first ways that we can combat our fear and anxiety is to pray. That's not where I want to go this morning, though. Where I want us to camp out this morning is on the second piece of advice that I would offer you for how to handle all our fears and anxieties, and that is that we need to do a better job of being thankful. Because whenever we spend time in thanksgiving, whenever we step back and remember all of the things that God has done for us, all the ways He's blessed us, all the scary things He's brought us through, all the times He has been with us in the past, then it's a whole lot harder for me to be afraid. Okay, I tend to get afraid whenever I think security is about me. Right? I tend to be afraid whenever success or failure in my life depends on me. On the flip side, I get confident when I take time to reflect on the ways that God provides and God protects and God loves me. Okay, so this week is Thanksgiving. This is a time when the righteous will gather around and watch cowboy football, where God's children will eat cranberry sauce that is shaped like the can, because that's the only way you should really eat it. If you don't eat it shaped like a can, it's not real cranberry sauce. Okay, but it's a time when God's children, honestly and seriously, will be thankful. Okay, and if we do it right, if we truly turn our hearts over to the Lord, and if we offer our thanks to Him, thanksgiving gives us confidence and assurance because it reminds us it's not about me. Okay, when we're thankful, we are reminded and we remind ourselves that God is at the center of the universe, and if God is at that center, then I don't have to be. And that takes a whole lot of pressure off of me. Okay, if you get nothing else out of the book of Ecclesiastes, out of our study for the last few months and the next couple months on the book of Ecclesiastes, I hope you get this one point. Okay, God is at the center, you're not, and life is so much easier. It's so much easier to find meaning and comfort and assurance when God is in the center. Okay, now what we deal with in the last half of chapter 5 is the opposite of thanksgiving. Okay, thanksgiving says, I am grateful for what I have. Thank you, Lord, for giving me all these things. The opposite of that is when I'm not grateful for what I have, and instead of being grateful to God for what He's given me, all I do is think about how I want more. Okay, yesterday, we took our two boys to the little fun-a-thon place just down the corner over here. It used to be a drugstore. Now they've turned it into a big place. They put bounce houses in there and slides and all sorts of great things. Okay, we took our kids in there and they went nuts. It's amazing in there. Okay? If you have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, that's like heaven on earth. It doesn't get any better than Fun-a-thon. So they're running around playing with all this stuff. We did that for a few hours. Finally, at the end of it, we drag our children from there kicking and screaming. Okay? Because they should have said, "Dad, thanks for taking us to this amazing place." Instead, what they say is, "Mom, Dad, I am mad at you because what we want is more than what you've given us." And what I want to do is wring them by the necks and say, "Look, we could have just sat at home and stared at the walls, right? But we gave you this because we love you and we want you to enjoy yourselves and want you to have all of this." Okay, my children, in their immaturity and in their selfishness, just want more. Aren't you glad we've all grown out of that as adults? Okay, so several points I want us to get from this text this morning. Second half of Ecclesiastes 5 lays this out very clearly. The first thing that he tells us is that the pursuit for more leads to sin. Okay, whenever we're stuck in that selfish place where all I want is more and all I can think about is getting more, it inevitably leads to sin. Notice verse 8. He says, "If you see the poor oppressed in a district and justice and right denied, do not be surprised at such things. For one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are others higher still. The increase from the land is taken by all. The king himself profits from the fields." Okay, again, I see this with my kids. All right, in our toy room, there's a tub full of cars. That's one of their favorite toys right now, playing with the tub full of cars. And what happens every day almost is one of them will get the tub full of cars, be sending the cars down the little slide, having all sorts of fun with cars. The other one, and it doesn't matter which because they both do it, the other one will find another car somewhere and walk up to the first one that's got the 10 cars already playing with them, right? And every single time, the kid with 10 cars sees his brother with 1 car, and what does he want? That one, right? I'm not going to be content with the 10 I've got. I've got to have your car. Now we can fight, right? I get really tired of saying, "Do not take things from your brother." I guarantee you, God looks down on us and says the same thing. Ecclesiastes tells us we live in a fallen world. He says, therefore, the way the world works is that people will stop at nothing. Whether it's manipulation or oppression or downright robbery, we will stop at nothing in our quest to get more stuff. He says, don't be surprised when you look out at the world around you and you see injustice as everyone keeps trying to get more and more and more for themselves. Our attachment to physical things is one of the primary things that separates us from God. Our number one idol is stuff. Now, as always, the disclaimer this morning is that having stuff is not good or bad, right? We all know that. And everyone says, well, yes, it's bad for people to keep wanting more and more stuff, but the stuff I have is okay because, God gave me the stuff, and it's okay to have stuff. Okay, but here's the question I really want us to ask ourselves this morning. Do we spend more time pursuing stuff or pursuing God? And what I really mean by that question is this. Do you spend more time being thankful for what you have or thinking about all the things that you want? Because it's real easy for me to say, well, I'm content with what I have and I'm grateful and all that stuff. But do I really spend more time being thankful for the blessings God has given me, or do I spend more time thinking about what I really want? How willing are we to step over other people to get what we want? If our number one goal is the pursuit of more, then that goal will inevitably lead to sin. Okay, this leads him right into number 2. Where he tells us that the pursuit for more is endless. Notice verse 10. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. Okay, the illusion is that if we pursue more hard enough, if I just keep working hard and keep my eyes on what I want to get and what I want to achieve, then someday we will arrive and I'll be able to look at all my wealth and say, look, I got enough. I have everything that I wanted. I have all my needs taken care of. Now, finally, I can be happy. But it doesn't work that way. He says no matter how much you get, you always want more because the pursuit of more is endless. Okay, I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but how many of you wake up every morning, look in a closet that's full, wall to wall with clothing, and then think, man, I can't find anything to wear today? You know in your mind that you have more clothing than 98% of the people in the world. And yet you keep thinking, man, but if I could just have a few more things, then I could have my content wardrobe. Okay, I guarantee you, no matter how much stuff you can accumulate in your life, there will always be something else that you want. So the ultimate point is, why keep chasing something you can't get? If the thing you spend your time thinking about is money or stuff, you will never be happy because it's a never-ending quest. Right? The next couple of verses say basically the same thing using different words. Number 3, he says the pursuit of more will not bring satisfaction. Verse 11, as goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to their owners except to feast their eyes on them? The sleep of a laborer is sweet, whether they eat little or much. But as for the rich, their abundance permits them no sleep. When I was in high school, one of the things I wanted more than anything else in the world was a car. Okay, because that's what high school boys dream about, right? Well, that and high school girls. But I wanted a car. That's a different sermon. We had that a couple months ago. Okay. I needed a car. Finally, my dad bought a car for me and my older sister to share. Okay, it was a 10-year-old brown Honda Civic. Okay, it didn't even have a CD player. This was back in ancient times, right? I know, can you imagine? Okay. When we got that car, I was so excited about it that I went and sat in the car, in the driveway, didn't even start it, and just sat there with it for a while thinking, I finally have wheels. It was glorious. A few weeks later, a buddy of mine got a car, and he came to pick me up in it, and we were going to go to the mall. Okay, he pulls up in a brand new cherry red Porsche. Okay. That's how the other half lived. Yes. Okay. I won't tell you how quickly we made it to the mall that day. Okay. Because my mother would kill me still. All right. We get back home and I get back into my part of the world and I look across the driveway and see my 10-year-old Honda Civic. And what did I think about my car? You know, I've heard of this study a few times. Most recently, someone brought it up in Connection Group last week. But you know that the amount of money that it takes for people to say that they are happy is always twice what they're making now. Okay, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. The amount when you ask someone, how much would it take to make you happy, is always right at twice what they're making now. Okay, so think about that. If you had twice what you had now, wouldn't that be awesome? I mean, if I doubled your income today, wouldn't that be amazing? Okay, would that make you pretty happy? Okay. The person who's making twice as much as you are thinks that what will make them happy is twice that. All right? And the person making half as much as you are thinks that what will make them happy is what you're making right now. It's always twice as much. The pursuit of more will not bring satisfaction. You know, another thing we get from verse 12 in this is that you sleep differently when you're rich. You know, that old Civic that I drove in high school, I didn't lock it when I got to school with it. Okay? Nobody was taking anything out of that car. It had nothing in it. Okay? And nobody was stealing that car either. Right? Because I went to a high school where it was the poorest car in the parking lot. Right? Well, that and the teachers' cars, they were kind of on an equal level. Right? But if anyone was going to go steal a car, they were going to steal my buddy's Porsche, not my car. Okay, I didn't even lock the thing. I didn't care about it. If someone opened a door and put a little door ding in my car, it would have just matched all the other ones and I wouldn't have even noticed. Right? I didn't worry about that car. When my buddy with the Porsche got his car, he had to check the forecast every day to see whether he was going to take his car to school that day, because if it was going to rain, he wasn't driving his car. When we made it to the mall, he had to park in the farthest spot all the way at the back of the parking lot because he was worried someone would touch his car. After we'd been there for a while, we had to leave and go check on his car to make sure that nobody had touched. I mean, it was a pretty car. I mean, I can't knock it, okay? He worried about that car. We all think, man, wouldn't it be great if we were so rich and wealthy, and wouldn't that be wonderful? You don't realize you would lose sleep if you had more stuff that you had to worry about. The pursuit of more will not bring satisfaction. All right, number 4. He also tells us that the pursuit for more will not bring security. Notice 13. He says, I've seen a grievous evil under the sun, wealth hoarded to the harm of its owners, or wealth lost through some misfortune, so that when they have children, there is nothing left for them to inherit. Back in 2007, Rachel and I got out of graduate school, and we were moving to our first church that would hire me to come preach for them. And we were on our way to Terrell, Texas, and we thought we would just get an apartment and live in an apartment for a little while before we finally bought a house. But we had several people tell us, you don't want to do that. If you get an apartment, you're just throwing money away. You want to invest in a house. You need to buy a house because, after all, it's a great investment. It's not like housing prices are ever going to go down. So in 2007, we bought a house and watched it go down in value until we finally sold it and had the privilege of writing a check to sell our house, right? Many of you were affected similarly. We often pursue wealth thinking that it will function as a source of security for us. Okay, we're going to invest in all these things because it's a sure thing, and our wealth is going to take care of us. If I'm being honest with you this morning, this is my biggest money temptation. I don't really care that much about having the cherry red Porsche, but boy, I want money in the bank so that I can feel secure. And yet I think we all know people who have lost their retirement through the stock market crash. They've had a sudden illness hit them that wiped out their assets. They've had a business turn south. Whatever it is, we know people. Some of us have been people who have lost lots of money. And yet we keep thinking if we could just get more of it, then we could feel secure. Ecclesiastes reminds us, though, that if we look to our wealth for security, we will be disappointed every time. The pursuit for more will not bring you security. Number 5. He also says the pursuit for more always ends the same way. Verse 15. Everyone comes naked from their mother's womb, and as everyone comes, so they depart. They take nothing from their toil that they can carry in their hands. This too is a grievous evil. As everyone comes, so they depart. And what do they gain since they toil for the wind? All their days they eat in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger. Okay, another way of saying this is, you can't take it with you. I want to introduce you to a guy named Marcus Licinius Crassus. Okay, I did some internet research this week, and most historians figure that he is the wealthiest person in human history to have ever lived. Okay, comparisons are difficult across the millennia, but when you look at what he could do with his personal wealth, it's more than what guys like Warren Buffett and Bill Gates can do today. This guy had a personal wealth equal to that of the treasury of Rome when Rome was in its most glorious days. This is stupid money. Okay? Well, ultimately, he got involved in politics. He went out to parley with a Parthian general, and the general took issue with Mr. Crassus and so decapitated him. This man had such a greedy reputation that the Parthian general had gold melted down and poured it down his throat to satisfy his hunger for gold. Okay? That's gruesome. All right, this was the richest man in the history of the world, and do you know how his story ended? He died. You want to know the ending of the story for all the other famous rich people from history? They died. Okay, and there are a lot of stories in history that we will never know because history tends to only focus on the rich and the powerful. But out of all of the billions of people that have ever walked the earth, all the billions of people that have been born and lived and worked and died, do you know how their stories ended? They died. Okay, our lives will either end one of two ways. Okay? There's only two possible outcomes for how your life is going to end. Either you will die, or you'll be alive when Jesus comes back and this world will be recreated in fire. Okay? Those are the only two possibilities. And no matter how much money you have in your bank account, at the end of it, it stays there. All right? You don't get to take it with you. We chase after all of this stuff, after all of this wealth, and yet we know it will be gone one day. Okay, you may get buried in the fanciest casket from the funeral home. You may even be so famous and powerful you get a pyramid built around you, but you won't be there to enjoy it. And that's a good thing. All of our pursuits end the same way. It ends with us going somewhere and all of our stuff staying behind us. All right, so notice his final reminder. Notice how he ends this text. He says, be happy with what you have. Verse 18. This is what I have observed to be good, that it is appropriate for a person to eat, to drink, and to find satisfaction in their toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given them, for this is their lot. Moreover, when God gives someone wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them, to accept their lot and be happy in their toil, this is a gift of God. They seldom reflect on the days of their life because God keeps them occupied with gladness of heart. Okay, here's the final point for us. There are people who are making more money than you who are happy. There are people making less money than you who are happy. There are people making both more and less than you who are also really unhappy. If your happiness is tied up in how much wealth you have or how much stuff you have, then you're chasing the wrong thing. We have to learn how to be happy with what we have. Well, this week is Thanksgiving. We'll all gather around tables and partake in a meal with family or friends, or even if we're just by ourselves, we have an opportunity to have a special time this week of thinking about what we are grateful for, about speaking those prayers back to God, telling Him we are thankful for what He's given us. What are you going to do this Thanksgiving? Are you going to focus on how you can keep getting more, or are we going to take time to truly refocus our lives and be happy with the things God has given us? At this time in our service, we're going to sing a few verses of an invitation song. During the singing of this song, I will be down front. One of our shepherds will be down front. If there's anything we can talk about with you or pray about with you, we will be here to help you in any way we can. The invitation is yours. If you need it, please come forward while we stand and while we sing.